culture has changed, and the public transportation needs to change as well.
We want to make sure that there is access for families who can't afford to have their own car.
We can't still have these huge lumbering buses.
For our low-income folks who rely on the public transportation, that burden is so much more.
All of these social programs and all of these social services, if we keep on spending more money on these programs, shouldn't that be offsetting some of the costs in other areas? I mean, is this just a perpetual money pit?
People's lives are not money pits, right?
We're dumping a ton of money into it, and we're not getting the results that we need.
And thanks for joining us. I'm Jim Hummel. We appreciate Billy Hunt and Paige Parks for this edition of Lively. Paige, RIPTA has been in the news a lot, and we talked about this about a month ago. There were going to be some pretty serious cuts affecting most of the routes. They have a $10 million gap to bridge. Governor McKee came in with a little extra money, but it still looks like the board is voting to cut back. And I'm wondering what you're thinking. This affects a lot of the people you represent.
Right. This affects a lot of families and children whose parents rely on RIPTA to be able to get to work or to get to school or medical appointments. So we are really concerned about that because we want to make sure that there is access for families who can't afford to have their own car to be able to get to work and get to the appointments that they need. So many of the families that we advocate for rely on RIPTA. They need the public transportation to be able to function and provide for their families.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely a service, and I think at some point the state has to decide whether or not they want a public transportation system. It's not necessarily whether it needs to be a profit center or anything like that. They need to decide, hey, we want to provide it or not. But anecdotally, I don't know if Rhode Island is set up for the public transit system that we currently have in place. I was sitting in traffic on the way in today. I went the bus, was it Route 60 from the East Bay inbound, right. And when I got over on 95 South, I saw, 66 heading down towards Kingston outbound. And if there were a half a dozen risers on each of those buses, I mean, we're Thursday at 8 o'clock in the schools, everybody's back at school. I mean, we should have full buses that are people going to and from work, and it's just not there. So it's not that I think we don't need a public transportation system. I do think it's very important. I think we just need to really reimagine how we actually do that as a state, because it's not working right now. It's not something that's sustainable. And I mean, we've set ourselves up in a state where if you can't rely 100% on RIPTA, so you need to get a car. Okay. And then once you get a car, why are you going to take the bus when you're already making the car payment, you're already paying for insurance, and the gas is negligible? I'll go sit and ride in my car instead of hopping on the bus. And unfortunately, I think that's where we're at right now. So I don't know what the answer is, but it's definitely not shuffling more money towards it. So
yeah, I always think that there's got to be some kind of other solution, right? So in the education world, we're also looking at the cost of transportation for school buses. And then, like, in one hand, we have a cost it's an exorbitant cost that continues to increase for school buses, and yet we have our public transit where we don't have enough money. I'm like, isn't there a way that we can put these together, right? There has to be some other solutions that we can think about reimagining what public transit can look like as a way to support the infrastructure that we need so that people can get to where they need to go. There's got to be some other solutions to
I think you have to look at it, as you said, is it a service? We're going to pay for it. But I do think there's some legitimate concerns about maybe empty buses. That's why they had the efficiency study. And they haven't had a fare increase in a long time. And I wonder, the bag of groceries has gone up. We know our electric bills have gone up. Why RIPTA, I understand they don't want to raise it too much because that might suppress people getting on the bus. But don't you think if it's your job that you have to get to, that you're going to pay maybe an extra 50, 75 cents, whether it's that or not being able to get to your job?
I think those are tough choices, that, especially for low-income folks, the choices they have to make every day around how you're going to spend every dollar is really, really difficult. So do we want to put our low-income folks who rely on public transportation to have to decide, am I going to spend this extra 75 cents or $1.50 round trip or whatever it may be to get to work when I also need that money for X, Y, and Z, so many other things. I don't think that we should put riders in that position unless their employers are going to help them
Yeah,
as well.
and that's what
So-
we've also seen out at Amazon. They have they've set up a special route dedicated to go to Amazon. I'm sure there'll be some reimbursement from the company.
I mean, I don't know. I mean, that's a hard argument to make because, I mean, costs are going up for everybody. I mean, I talk to people all the time. I work in insurance. Your car insurance premium goes up, and you got to pay for it. And that has a lot to do with a lot of external factors that aren't necessarily related to you as a driver just by, driving in the state of Rhode Island. So to tell a rider that they need to get to work, they have to pay a higher share of that value to take the bus, I don't think is necessarily a bad thing. I think the larger issue is that, you brought up school buses as a great example. Jim, you're in Barrington. How long is the line of cars around the block to pick up the kids, even though that the schools, the buses are available? And that's not just in that community, that's across the board. I think the culture has changed, and the public transportation needs to change as well. And we can't still have these huge lumbering buses. We can't still have the same main routes. It needs to be a better thought out. It's not the same. We don't have factories in cities that we can go to, or even the main professional jobs aren't necessarily all centralized in Providence. To have this hub and spoke system where if I wanted to come here this morning and take public transportation, I would have probably had to leave at like 6 a.m. in order to do a transfer in Providence and to get out to here and walk as well. And it's just not feasible for an average family to do that. I've got young kids. It would cost me more money to rearrange my schedule enough to meet the scheduling of the RIPTA than it would be to pay for a car payment, in my opinion. So it's a tough sell.
Yeah, well, about the fare increases too, as you said, the price of things have gone up, but we also can't forget that the ridership of RIPTA many of our low-income folks, and so for them, for the price to go up for more things is a huge burden. So for us, it may feel like it's not a tremendous amount of money. Everything's going up. It's a pressure and stress on many, many people. But for our low-income folks who rely on the public transportation, that burden is so much more than for most other folks.
Yeah,
so it's important to remember that.
Well,
too.
we just had a whole budget talk about so has the increase in spending on all of these social programs and all of these social services. If we keep on spending more money on these programs, shouldn't that be offsetting some of the costs in other areas? I mean, is this just a perpetual money pit that we gotta, again, we can talk about the homeless crisis, we can talk about housing, we can talk about all these issues. If we just keep dumping money in it, we're not getting any results out of it. RIPTA, I feel, is in that same bucket. We're dumping a ton of money into it. We don't have the routes available for people to adequately use it, and we're not getting the results that we need. And a fare increase is, again, we're trimming around the edges because, again, like I said, I think the state needs to decide whether or not we just want to fund our public transportation and do it the right way.
That's the key, isn't it, though?
Yeah.
Because, it's the last $10 million. They have a $150 million budget. Yeah. But this is not a new argument. Every year, RIPTA comes hand in hand. Maybe they need to hire a former Speaker of the House as their lobbyist. What do you think? That would be, that might get like payday lending, right? We've talked about that. But I think the state needs to decide, is this going to be something, like you go to Philadelphia, you go to New York, you go to Boston, you can, and people do rely to get to work. In Providence, I think it's a car-first mentality for a lot of people.
Yeah, absolutely. And also just to clarify, too, and I don't know if this is what you meant, but just to clarify that people's lives are not money pits, right?
No.
But we can look
the organization.
Yeah.
No, but I mean,
we can look at how do we improve the services so that we are able to address the needs that are there. Yeah. So I know that's not what you meant, but I just wanted to clarify that there too. So absolutely, how do we make the systems more effective, more efficient? How do we modernize? And also knowing what the culture is. Do we want to invest in shifting the culture of our state so that we think about public transportation first? And so there is a lot, absolutely, that we need to do to make RIPTA the business model of RIPTA also more sustaining and also meet the needs of the people in the ridership.
You know, I live in the East Bay. My wife works in Warwick. You could probably crow flies, get there in 15 minutes.
You could take a Boston Whaler and you'd be there a lot quicker,
You know,
right?
I used to think that all the time. But, you know, back in the day, they used to have, you know, ferries going out for Rocky Point and, you know, East Providence all the way down to Colt State Park. And, you know, you look at places in other countries where they have a mixed modal system. And I think, again, we are a tourist industry. We should be making it easy for people who are traveling here to be able to get around the state. We have a ferry system right now, but again, connecting the timing of the buses and the ferries, and I mean, look what happened with the link to the T.F. Green Airport, and we can't get a train down there to get down to the airport. You know, these types of
you get in and you got to Uber up. You can't just hop on a train. To go to Providence.
If we wanted to take and make an investment and focus on, you know, a truly a universal system that's not just hopping on a RIPTA bus going to Providence or, you know, going down to Newport and working your way around the bay, but could hop on, hop off, and, you know, do something like that. That would be something that I think more people would be able to get on board with. But again, the culture is already so far towards the car situation. You'd have to really create an enticing, you know, thing. And I besides creating the infrastructure, I don't know if the state should be running it. I think there should be more private options available for public transportation. But that, again, comes with all sorts of regulations and the Public Utilities
Commission. Yeah, and I'm not sure a
and
private company isn't going to cut. Right. They're going to be a little less patient with some of those empty buses, right?
Yeah. So we have to, I think, be very careful around what is privatized and making sure it's truly open to all of the public to be able to access.
That is a key distinction there. Is a privatization
Right.
of the running of the organization. Again, you could RFP it out and do it for a 5-year contract that someone's going to do it for X amount of dollars. It doesn't necessarily mean that we're going to be excluding people from riding out. To the contrary, again, if someone could come in and say, I could reimagine this, you know, public transportation system without a fare and run it for you for the next 5 years for less than what it costs you to run RIPTA, why would that be a problem? Are we talking more about providing the service, or like it is in many things in the state, are we just providing a jobs program for the employees of RIPTA and the state employees?
But you know, privatization always goes towards cutting bottom line shareholders. There's a lot of, you know, so I don't know if that's an efficiency. I do agree with you about the empty buses, and I know this efficiency study. I have talked to experts who I've said, what about the smaller buses? You know, you run smaller buses. They have said they've done studies on that, and it may not be more cost efficient, but I think the public perception is just like the school buses. When you see empty buses going down the road, they're like, they want more money. Why don't they kind of figure out a way to rejigger, you know, who's riding on what bus?
Right. So to look
It's
at
not easy snapping your fingers.
It's not
Yeah,
easy. It's
yeah.
very complicated. It's a very complicated system. It's a complicated problem. If it was the easy solution, it would have been done, right? Would have been done.
What would you like to see them do in the next year? So we're through the crisis now, supposedly. They gave them another $3 million, but then I read, when you read between the lines, it's a loan. Like RIPTA's going to, it's like
pay it back,
it's like
right.
the payday lending, right? Oh, how are you going to pay that back? So whether they have to pay that $3 million back or not, but it seems like a Band-Aid on a bullet hole.
Right. So there needs to be a plan, like so many things. There needs to be a plan with a vision, with a strong commitment.
Not our forte in Rhode Island, right?
I know. We need a plan and stick to the plan, and keep the plan going around creating a vision for a public transportation system that is efficient, that provides incentives for people to want to be able to use public transportation, that's accessible to low-income folks to be able to use, and then create that plan using all business models and research and then stick with it and invest.
What do you want to see?
Well, you know, the easy solution is create a voucher system and let everybody take Uber everywhere. I mean, that would be the way it is. But functionally, that's not going to work, because what you would inevitably find is that more people would take advantage of the free service because it's available to them and it's convenient to them. RIPTA is not convenient. It's not a profitable service. It shouldn't be. It's a public transportation. It's something that, again, we need to decide as a community what we want to provide as public transportation and how much we want to invest in it. And again, loans and all this other stuff like that, and even keeping it separate from the school districts and the school buses. I mean, this should be all interconnected, intermodal, and a lot better, more efficiently run and centralized than what it is right now.
All right, I'm declaring it right now. I'm going to appoint you guys to a subcommittee.
Oh, boy.
You're going to be working over that. Billy and Paige will figure out RIPTA over the next year. All right, to be continued. Paige, thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
Billy,
Thank
good
you.
to see you. And thank you for watching. Join us back here next time on Lively.